What happens when you want to plant some veggies in your garden, you look at the back of the seed packet and decide to throw the plant spacing requirements completely out the window? That's exactly what we did in this experiment, and we were pretty surprised at what we found. So in my hand, I have one of our seeds. This is red acre cabbage, and I have red acre cabbage seedlings down here. I'm gonna read the back of the official botanical interest packet to show you what we should do, and then we're gonna break all of those rules together. So according to our official packet, we are supposed to be planting a group of 3 seeds every 12 to 24 inches. So 1 to 2 feet apart, and then between rows, 24 to 36 inches or 2 to 3 feet apart. Now, it kind of begs the question, why does a cabbage have, let's say, different spacing than a tomato or a carrot? Well, think about a carrot. What you're trying to do when you're growing vegetables at home, like I am, hopefully you are, is you're trying to get as much as you can out of the space that you have. Certainly when I first started gardening over 12 years ago, I didn't have this much space. I had almost nothing, and I had to get as much as I could get. So take a carrot. They grow about 1 to 3 inches in diameter, so you can space them roughly about 2 or 3 inches apart, and the carrots will kind of line up really nicely next to each other without taking too much nutrition and competing with one another. And that's really the thing you want to avoid with something like a carrot or these other vegetables that you grow. But cabbages growing above the ground have a little bit of a different requirement. They grow really big. In fact, you think of cabbages as a cabbage head, but there's a ton of these accessory leaves that grow around a cabbage that will sort of run into one another if you space them too close together. So let me share with you the 3 ways we are going to space. So here's what we have going here. We have a 4x4 grid of my test garden that's been broad forked. I've thrown some water on it. It's nice and hydrated, nice and loose, ready to accept and grow some huge, huge cabbages. What we're gonna do is we're gonna have 3 different spacings. I have 4 cabbages spaced 12 inches apart right here. We'll do 3 cabbages spaced 18 inches apart right there. 2 cabbages spaced 2 feet apart or 24 inches right over there. And the whole thing I'm wondering, and I'm done with the answer really, is am I going to see smaller cabbages here and massive ones over there because there's more space, they can get more nutrients, more access to sun, water? Or am I maybe gonna see the exact same results? I'm curious what you think. So comment down right now if you think the 12 inch, 18 or 24 inch are going to win. My personal bet is probably 18 and 24 will do similar and 12 might be a little bit small. That's my guess, but we shall see. So let's go ahead and get to planting. The one thing I'm gonna do is add a little bit of granular organic fertilizer, roughly a tablespoon or so. Nothing too crazy to every single hole so they're all on an even playing field. Going in with the 2-foot spacing row, the last row, and I just wanted to mention that I'm doing the exact same amount of spacing between the rows as well. It's about 2 feet and 3 inches. We're planted in. We have a couple more things to do. I need to water this, and then I'm going to protect these cabbages with critter covers, which is sort of a mesh little basket, because in my climate, it's still pretty hot, and they're predators that will eat these alive unless I protect them in this young stage of their life. But I'm excited. We have the experiment set up. Let's see what happens in a couple weeks. While we let those cabbages go on their very long growth journey, I'm here in the greenhouse to talk about today's sponsor, Shopify. Shopify is a commerce platform that, no joke, is single-handedly the most important tool that we use here at Epic Gardening when it comes to software. And the reason I say that is because many of you watching have supported Epic for 4 or 5 years now, selling products directly to you guys, our audience. Back in 2019, when I first started doing that, the first thing I installed was Shopify. I put a simple store up. Some of you probably even remember it. I'll put a screenshot up for you. And it was simple, but it got the job done. And of course, these days, not only do we have a Shopify store for Epic Gardening, but also our seed company, Botanical Interests. One of the very first things that we did when we first acquired Botanical Interests is move them off of a very old commerce platform that I had to literally call someone to make a change to the website over to Shopify, and it was one of the biggest improvements we made that year. In fact, in 2020, when things were going crazy because of all the stuff going on in the world and gardening was taking off, both Jacques and I were in the warehouse shipping orders for you guys all the time, and we would be using Shopify on the mobile app, getting order notifications, being able to make changes to the store. There's a magic media editor where you can do quick changes on the fly, as well as checking analytics while we were literally packing orders day in and day out. So whether you have a business online or offline, you sell products or services, to me, there is only one choice for a commerce platform in the modern era, and that, of course, would be Shopify. We wholeheartedly recommend it. Literally, you would not be watching this video without Shopify helping to power part of Epic Gardening. So if you want a free trial, you can check it out in the video description. I wholeheartedly recommend it with every fiber of my being. I absolutely love Shopify. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video. And now let's check on those cabbages. It has been a few weeks and the cabbage has disappeared. Why? Because we're still getting those cabbage moths in our climate. So I put a little hoop cover over this, and let's reveal the growth after just about 2 or 3 weeks now. Okay, let's see what we got here, guys. Okay, that's surprising. That is very surprising. First of all, I'm a little bummed because you can see we do have some pest damage. These damn cabbage loopers are everywhere in my garden, and sometimes they can squeeze through even the most severe protection. So the ones up front, the 2 feet spacing, those have been eaten the most, and they also look, honestly, roughly the same size as the rest of these. So I'm gonna come through, hand pick off all the caterpillars. We might even spray with a little bit of BT just for the purpose of this experiment, cover them back up, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Well, my friends, it's been a while since we last checked in here, and I thought we were on death's door with these cabbages because of the crazy cabbage worm pressure we had earlier in their growing cycle. But I'm happy to say my dreams of becoming a Cabbage Patch Kid have come true because we have our cabbage spacing experiment pretty much fully grown out. So it's time to harvest. But before I do, the things I'm noticing are something very surprising and maybe not at the same time. The middle cabbage in our 18-inch row and the 2 middle cabbages in our 12-inch row are markedly smaller than any cabbage on the exterior. Now, of course, this makes sense. These have the least space for their roots to run and suck up a bunch of nutrients and water and just get a lot bigger. The edge is quite a bit bigger, and our 2 front ones with the most spacing, 24 inches, have sized up, though I will put the caveat in that since they were so hit by cabbage worms, they might be a little stunted because of that and not because of spacing. But it's time to get the harvest going. So what we're gonna do is harvest the rows out, and then we will weigh them and average out the weight of a cabbage. So for this one, I'll divide it by 4, this one 3, this one 2, and we'll see, is there a difference? Let's get to harvesting. So what I'll also do is I'll remove all of these fan leaves and get down to just the head of cabbage to try to keep it as fair as possible, because really, when you're growing cabbage, you care about the head, not about all the fan leaves. We have our cabbages all harvested up, trimmed up, and ready to weigh. So we're gonna start out with the ones that were spaced as the seed packet deems correct, which would be our 24-inch or 2-foot spacing, which would be these 2 right over here. Now, what's interesting is these 2, neither of these is the physically largest cabbage. This would be the physically largest cabbage over here in the 12-inch spacing, but this was on the corner. So we'll talk about why that might not matter in a second here, but let's go ahead with our first measurements. So our 24-inch spacing cabbage is an average of 3.1 kilograms, which I'd be pretty pleased with. It's over a 5-pound cabbage. That's pretty good. Let's move on to 18-inch spacing here. The average weight of our 18-inch spacing cabbages is a hair under the average weight of our 24-inch spaced cabbages at 3,028 grams, or just a hair over 3 kilograms to the 3.1 we had over here. Okay, on to our tightly spaced cabbages. I'm gonna start out with the 2 small ones, but take a look. I mean, these are probably going to be the lightest cabbages of the entire bunch, but over here, we have what I think is gonna be the heaviest. The average of the 4 cabbages is actually lower than the other 2 by quite a bit. We're coming in at 2.74 kilograms, so just a couple hundred grams underneath the average of either of these, making on a per cabbage basis our 24-inch spacing cabbage the heaviest. But average cabbage weight isn't the only way to slice this up. If I was just going for biggest on a per cabbage basis, I might space them out this way. But if I was space constrained, I might still go over here because we didn't add up the total weight. So on a total weight basis, the numbers change drastically in favor of spacing tighter. So if you're a space constrained gardener, this might be the way to go because you're getting just way more actual cabbage density. So let me read it off for you. Over here on our very widely spaced 24-inch cabbages, we have a total of 6.2 kilograms worth of cabbage. Over here on our 18-inch, we have 9 kilograms. And then over here on our 12-inch, we have a shocking almost 11 kilograms of cabbage. So to me, the results of this experiment is a tale of 2 worlds. On one hand, if I wanted to max out my plant's yield on a per plant basis, I would follow the seed packet to a T. I'd space it out as instructed, and even between rows, I would give it ample space. and I would really care for that plant to max it out. If I was going for pure production, I would space it a lot tighter if I just didn't have a lot of space. And the other thing I'll say is it does depend a lot on the plant. Something like a cabbage, which is growing above the ground, needs some space for sure for those fan leaves to spread out and get a lot of energy from the sun, suck up a lot of nutrients from the soil, but I couldn't really cram carrots together or maybe cram potatoes together like I might be able to in this cabbage. So this is certainly not an all-encompassing experiment, but it was a fun one, and I'm curious what takeaways you got from this. So let me know down below. We do experiments like this here at Epic Gardening to figure out what actually works in the garden and what is sort of an old wives' tale. So if you want to check out more of those, go right here and check this playlist out. Until next time, guys, good luck in the garden and keep on growing.